I want to remind everybody this Bible study is not associated with any company, institution, or denomination. If you'd like to invite someone to attend this Bible study devotional, you can feel free to forward the text reminder to them that we send out on Tuesdays, or they can sign up for it by typing in one word, Game Changer, to 474747. And like I said, that'll get them signed up for the text reminders. Don't be afraid to invite somebody. This kind of started out with a few of us that were in the claims business with different companies. And, now we're kind of spreading out. I think we may have some engineers. We've got some cause and origin experts. And so if you just know of anybody this could potentially reach out to, we don't want to kind of box this into somebody that might receive value from it. But, excuse me, this morning I'm going to ask you this. Do you have a scar? Have you got a scar maybe that physically you can see, or maybe you've been emotionally scarred before? But, scars come out in all shapes and sizes. Some show disfigurement. Some are just emotional and people don't see them and don't know they're there, and some of them are a combination of both of them. But in order to have a scar, you always have to remember that you've had to be wounded somehow. The first time I remember of somebody that had a scar that just actually changed their life was when I was in the 7th grade. One of my real good friends was involved in a hunting accident where a shotgun was discharged and hit him in his calf. And it basically took a lot of the muscle and everything off of his calf, and he went through probably a year of reconstructive surgeries, physical therapy, and came back. But his leg had a big hole in it where the calf was, and you can actually see where the skin was over the bone. And so, if he had a pair of shorts on and he walked into a room, everybody would look at it, and he dealt with that. He dealt with it well, probably a lot better than I would. But he had that scar. And I started thinking about in the Bible where somebody potentially, might have had a scar that we don't generally think about. And I thought about in Luke chapter 5, verse 12, that's where Jesus heals a man with leprosy. And in verse 12 it says, while Jesus was in one of those towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell to his face and begged him, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him. Now, I don't know when he was healed if his skin was just like a baby's. I have no idea. And it very well could have been. There could have been some scars there that he was going to have to live for the rest of his life. But think about probably the emotional scars that he had. Think about what he had gone through the prior years before he was healed. He most likely had not seen his wife or his family because he had been cast off by society then. And, many times the lepers had to wear a bell to alert others that they were near. And he'd probably heard the words shouted at him over and over again, unclean, unclean, unclean. And so when I start thinking about that and all the human connection that he probably had lost, I think that at the least he's probably had to deal with some emotional scars. So if we have a scar, whether it's physical or emotional, what can we learn from it? You've got to learn that when other people see that scar and you share with them maybe about your scar, it can initiate healing in another person. You have to be vulnerable. That's a big thing right now in you'll see it, I think, more and more in the corporate world. They're teaching in management that, managers have to be vulnerable. Which is a totally foreign concept when you're a man. That's not something that you're real good at. But when you're vulnerable, you can give others the courage to see that you've made it and then give them hope that they can make it too. One thing that a scar does for yourself is it reminds you of what didn't work. My son has scars on his knees from having a knee surgery. Having a deep squat with a lot of weight on it didn't work. Now my son says, I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not going to tear my knee up. So those scars remind him, hey, if I go back to that, I could likely tear up a knee, and if I do that, I'll have to have surgery again. So it reminds you of what didn't work. You can tell others, with your scar, you can tell others about the grace that God gave you. And, I can just, sometimes you will tell people about a scar or something that you've gone through, and they go, wow, you went through that? And a lot of times they had no idea. And, your story might be what someone sees and realizes that God's grace is enough for them if it was good enough for you. And your story may be something that is so traumatic and compared to what they're going through that they just all of a sudden realize, hey, mine's pretty minor. God's grace is going to be good enough for me too in that situation. And you can show people how God took your wound and healed it. A lot of times, somebody else has you may have a scar and somebody else may just have a wound. And if you show them, your scar and you're vulnerable, sometimes you can kind of initiate that healing with them. And I encourage you to do that because, if you're proud of your scar and you're willing to share, that is a big thing. The last thing I'll tell you, I think that it does is it doesn't change other people's testimony. I have several friends that have been addicts in the past, and they're the same age as me or a little older, and they share their story with young guys that have gone down the same road, and they don't hide anything from them. They're really vulnerable, and they really show them all the scars that they have. And by doing that, I've seen guys come out of drug addiction, and they're basically come out with this testimony, and they start changing other people's lives. And so I think even, if you don't have that dramatic testimony where you came out of a drug addiction, you still have some scars somewhere that you can share with somebody. And so, don't hide those. In closing, I urge you not to run from those who are wounded. If you look through the Bible, Jesus did not run from those, who were sick, who were possessed. He went to those people. And so a lot of times you may have to initiate that, but I encourage you to initiate going to those people and being vulnerable and showing them, what your scar is, and not hiding, knowing that you can make a huge difference in someone's life. And, you can help them turn their wound into a scar. So that's all I've got this morning on that, and I'll open it up for discussion.